In a city that never slept, where the lights shone bright but the streets remained unforgiving, a small boy named Liam sat on the curb, his face smeared with dirt and his clothes torn and ragged. At just 7 years old, Liam had already learned the cruel lessons of life. His parents, once his protectors and guides, were gone, victims of a tragic fire that had ripped through their modest home. Now, he was alone, left to fend for himself on the cold, indifferent streets. The world around him was caught in the grip of a financial crisis. People moved quickly, their faces drawn with worry and their hands tucked deep into their pockets. Compassion was a luxury few could afford. As Liam sat there, he watched the passers-by with wide, hungry eyes. His stomach growled, a painful reminder of the emptiness inside. He held out his small, trembling hand, hoping someone, anyone, would take pity on him. But one by one, they passed him by, their eyes fixed straight ahead, pretending not to see the little boy who so desperately needed their help. Days like these had become routine for Liam. He was too young to understand the full weight of his situation, but old enough to feel the sting of rejection. Every step he took, every hand he reached out, was met with silence. He was a ghost in a city of the living, a shadow among the bustling crowds. On this particular day, as Liam's hope began to fade into the dimming twilight, a small food stall caught his eye. The smell of freshly baked buns wafted through the air, mingling with the scents of the city. Liam's mouth watered as he watched the stall's owner, a man in his 30s with a kind face and warm eyes, serve his customers. The man, Mr. Alvaro, noticed Liam sitting on the curbside, his eyes locked onto the food, with a longing that broke his heart. Mr. Alvaro had seen his share of hardship. The financial downturn had hit everyone hard, and his small food stall barely made enough to cover his own expenses. Yet, when he saw the little boy, alone and hungry, something stirred within him, a memory of a time when he too had needed help. Setting aside his worries for a moment, Mr. Alvaro grabbed a hot, freshly baked bun and a bottle of water. He walked over to Liam, who looked up at him with a mixture of fear and surprise. "Hey there, little one," Mr. Alvaro said gently, crouching down to Liam's level. "Are you hungry?" Liam, too shocked to speak, simply nodded. His eyes, wide and teary, were fixed on the bun in Mr. Alvaro's hand. Mr. Alvaro smiled and extended the food toward him. "Here, take this," he offered. "It's fresh out of the oven." For a moment, Liam hesitated, unsure if he should trust this stranger. But the smell of the warm bun was too much to resist. Slowly, he reached out and took it, his small hands trembling. "Thank you, sir," Liam whispered, his voice barely audible. Mr. Alvaro's smile grew softer. "No need to thank me. Just eat up and take care of yourself, okay?" As Liam bit into the bun, tears streamed down his face. It was the first time in days he'd felt anything but hunger and despair. The kindness of this man, this stranger, was a light in his dark world. He ate quickly, savoring every bite, while Mr. Alvaro watched quietly, his heart heavy yet warmed by the simple act of giving. In the days that followed, Liam would often think back to that moment. To him, Mr. Alvaro was not just a man who gave him food. He was a symbol of hope, a reminder that there was still goodness in the world. Years passed, and the small, hungry boy grew into a young man with a purpose. Fueled by his memories of hardship and the kindness of a stranger, Liam studied hard, determined to make something of himself. Eventually, his hard work paid off. He became a doctor, dedicating his life to helping those in need, just as he had once been helped. One day, while making his rounds at the hospital, Liam overheard a conversation that caught his attention. Outside a patient's room, a family was gathered, their faces etched with worry and fear. Inside, lying on a hospital bed, was an elderly man whose face Liam recognized instantly, Mr. Alvaro. He looked frail, his body weakened by age and illness. The years had not been kind to him. His family spoke in hushed tones with the nurse, their voices filled with despair. "We can't afford the bill," Mr. Alvaro's daughter said, her voice trembling. "What are we going to do?" Liam's heart ached at the sight. He remembered the hot bun, the water, the kind smile. Without a second thought, he turned on his heel and made his way to the hospital's billing office. Approaching the counter, he pulled out his wallet and handed his credit card to the clerk. "I'd like to settle the bill for the patient in room 207, he said firmly. "Mr. Alvaro." The clerk looked at him, surprise flickering across her face. "Are you sure, doctor?" she asked. "It's quite a sum." Liam nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. "Yes," he replied softly. "I'm sure." The clerk processed the payment, and Liam took the receipt, pulling out a pen. He wrote a few words on it before folding it and handing it back to her. "Please give this to his family," he said. As Liam walked away, the clerk unfolded the receipt and read the note. Her eyes widened, and she felt a lump form in her throat. On the receipt, Liam had written, "Paid in full for a hot bun." Later, Mr. Alvaro's family received the receipt. They read the note, tears welling up in their eyes. Mr. Alvaro, too weak to speak, managed a faint smile, his eyes glistening with tears of gratitude and understanding. Sometimes, a small act of kindness can ripple through time, growing into something far greater than ever imagined. For Liam, it was a debt he had always intended to repay, a debt not of money, but of the heart. As he walked down the hospital corridor, his footsteps echoing softly, Liam knew that his life had come full circle. The kindness he had received as a child, he had returned in the only way he knew how. And in the quiet of that moment, he felt a peace he hadn't known since he was a boy, a peace that whispered of a world where hope could still thrive, even in the darkest of times.